I don't want to wait for the full countdown. I'm going to go ahead and get started because I'm ready. So, good afternoon. Let me turn down the music here. Hello and welcome to a live stream. This is week 2, day 2 of my class Intro to Digital Studies, and I am Professor Zach Whalen, the professor of my class. So, welcome to this live stream. If you are a student in the class, if you're a student in the class, you should know that you can always chat with me online in Discord while I'm streaming, or anyone can use the Twitch chat if you'd like. Either way is fine. Most people seem to be using the Twitch chat, which works for me. That's fine. I see that, except the only downside to those is that those aren't recorded, or it's harder to get back to those later, but that's not a big deal really. So yeah, good afternoon, Chosen Clown. Good to see you online again. It was interesting yesterday because I had a few more people than yesterday than what I had last week, streaming at a different time. So my hope is that this afternoon works better for slightly more people. So far, that's not the case today. It looks like there's only 5 people online, but there may be more coming. Yesterday, it actually increased throughout the stream. It got more and more. So maybe that'll be the case today. Regardless, it's all being recorded, so you can access it that way. And I've been putting timestamps on those in the YouTube playlist for this class, and I think I forgot to yesterday, but at least for last week, I went back through each day of notes for last week and embedded the video. So if you click on the video for each of those days, you can see the video and then use the timestamps to jump to different parts of the video if you want to. So hopefully that's making things pretty accessible and easy to navigate for you as you work through this. Oh yeah, by the way, so check out this shirt. I got this, you can kind of see it, but it's not all there. I got a shirt, it's backwards because I have the camera mirrored so I can see myself normally, but this is my Common Digital Studies t-shirt. Professor Rao got these for the CDS department, so glad to be able to show it off today. Although I wish, I'm more the digital studies part of the department, so I do kind of wish the digital, I like the logo, but it's just the way I'm standing, you can only see comm. And so I kind of wish, I had a way to make the digital more visible, but that's, I guess, I'm here, you can see me, and I'm all digital, so I guess that works. So anyway, so I've got, I don't have as much of a lecture today. I really just have a couple of slides to kind of navigate and sort of remind myself about what's going on as I move through it. But here are our goals for today, your goals. 2 activities from the web literacy textbook. First, the spotting sponsored content one, and then the going upstream to search for the sources of viral images activities. And I'm going to walk through both of those activities on the stream today. And many of you have already started doing it in Discord, which is great. So whenever you watch this, if you're doing it later, whenever you feel like you can do these activities on your own, you can even do it without Discord. It's just, having Discord is a way to sort of share your results and compare notes. And then I can go back in and see what you've posted and see if that's correct or if I have any, corrections for you. But this is the idea. And by demoing how to use these, it'll be just, practicing web literacy. It'll be a chance for me to show you a few techniques and things you might not know how to use or might not have ever thought about using. Specifically, there are a couple tools, 3 tools that I think you'll find interesting or useful today. I'm going to talk about archive.today, which is a way that you can document a web source without sending that web source traffic, because when you start researching conspiracies and fake news and stuff like that, people put that out so that they get web traffic and then they get ad revenue. They make tremendous amount of money on this stuff. And whenever I say, hey, here's a site, and I link to it, I'm essentially contributing to their business model. I'm essentially saying, this is, I'm sending you all to, or whoever, to this website, and then you might see their ads and might accidentally click on something, and then they get money for it. That's not what I want. So archive.today is a nice way to capture a web page in its current state without sending people to it. And it's quick and easy, and I'll show you how to use it. A couple other tools, reverse image search and advanced search tools in Google, are useful ways to start doing the research that you should be doing for your article that you're working on right now. So before we move on, about those articles, I have gotten a lot of submissions. Most of you have submitted your top 5 choices or 4 choices or whatever in that Google form, and I have responded to most of you, and through conversation, I think helped find most of you a topic that you can work with. The problem is, I think I wasn't clear when I said when I gave you all some sample topics. I wasn't saying choose from these 5 topics. I was saying these are examples of the kinds of things people can research And what I meant by that was you need to go find your own topic that is a topic kind of like these, because the ones I'm suggesting have mostly already been widely covered and debunked. So there's not really space for you to write a debunking article because it's already been done. So when you do that first step of our methodology here, searching for prior work, you're going to do that. You'll find a Snopes article, and then there's nothing else to do. So it's really not a good question for you to research. But I think I may have written that unclearly or something, because a lot of you went with that misinterpretation of my instructions. But I think through conversation, I've been able to help you all get something that's going to work. There are others ideas I shared in the general channel for Discord last night. A very long document with like 300 or so possible questions you can research. The big caveat with that is that not all of those are great, but some of them will be. So take a look through it, and if you find something interesting, do that first step, check for prior work, and if you don't find any prior work on it, then you might have something good to work with. The other issue, though, is some of those questions are kind of vague, and so you would probably have a better time with a more narrow version of those questions. So see if you can think that way. The other thing you can do, and I'm going to offer this advice with a lot of caveats, so bear with me. But the other thing you can do is go out into the wild and see what's going on right now, and catch something live, basically, or kind of see what's happening. So I'm on Twitter right now. I'm logged into my real Twitter account. I'm really going to do this search. But just bear in mind that when you do things like this, Twitter knows it, and Twitter might think, well, you're interested in these things, and then it might start recommending more content like the kind of garbage that I might come across if I search on Twitter for certain combinations of hashtags. You can kind of see my history here. I've been trying this out. So Twitter, to its credit, has done a pretty good job of banning a lot of accounts that promote this kind of content. So if you look for like 5G and COVID together, that's going to be one that at least used to give you a lot of results related to the conspiracy theory that 5G networks actually caused COVID. You don't see as much of that now, and mostly people here are kind of making jokes about it, right? Like this is someone making a joke about how the 5G works really well now that he got his second vaccine. If you switch to latest, this is when you're going to get a less filtered view and more likely to get, fake news, conspiracy theory kind of things. I'm not seeing a lot just as I skim this right now. I don't know. I don't actually read Italian. I think this is Italian, might be Portuguese, but this particular tweet here, based on the image, I'm wondering if this is someone combining the COVID plus 5G. Yeah, I wonder, this hashtag here must be, so there's also this idea of chemtrails, which is another conspiracy theory, and I wonder if this is like, I don't know if this is Italian or Portuguese, but whatever language this is, I think the hashtag is the whatever language version of chemtrails. Chemtrails, in case you don't know, are, okay, so this might be something. Yeah, okay, there you go. There's a fake news, a questionable claim. The government is blocking the sun with chemtrails. So, oh boy, okay, here's a lot. There's another one. So chemtrails, like, how whenever you're looking at the sky and you see like a line of like a cloud, but it's in a line shape, and this is the condensation trail left by an airplane that went by at a high altitude. At least, well, that you chemtrails is the theory that those aren't actually condensate. That's not actually condensation left behind by just the plane moving through the atmosphere. That's actually the residue of spray, like chemicals being sprayed on the planet for different purposes. Mind control is one way. Geoengineering is one reason, allegedly, that this happens. So there's a whole set of conspiracy theories around chemtrails that have been around for decades, but that also converge a lot with theories about climate change and any kind of massive weather event. Like, I'm sure someone has a theory related to chemtrails that explains the heat wave going on right now in the Northwest. I'm not going to look for that, but this is the kind of thing. This is the way you can find things here. Now, chemtrails themselves, like, that idea is probably pretty widely debunked. I don't know, but let's take a look at Snopes. I mean, there's no evidence for it. So if you go to chemtrails here, yeah, okay. So these are different things related to chemtrails. Oh yeah, the fake snow one, that was a good one. I think it was last winter I saw a lot of the fake snow theories, like the idea that the snow that was falling was not actually snow, but it was some kind of chemical. Anyway, but like look, so chemtrails in general is probably too broad to do an article about, but a specific claim here, like Strongsville, Ohio, sprayed on these particular days, right? Like that's a very specific claim, and because it's specific like this, it is something we could, theoretically verify if it was true. If we can't verify it, then that leads us to be, skeptical, and that's probably true. Okay, cool. All right, pretty interesting stuff here. So, yeah, that's one way to find some bad information. Let me show you another way, and this is a way that I'm going to have to add even more caveats about. And maybe this is not necessary because I think a lot of you are moving on to having topics that work, but I have to get something ready in the background here. So I'm using, so yesterday I talked about browser security, and over here in another window I've got a pretty secure browser situation set up that I'm going to use to show you something. All right, this should work. Yeah, and I did share a archive.today link to this earlier in Discord, but I wanted to show you how I found this claim. So I'm going to switch on here. So here I'm using the Brave browser and using a private tab with running on the Tor network. So this is pretty secure, and I'm not accepting any cookies. And in this case, security is important because whenever you visit a website and you search for certain things, right? This gets added to your advertising profile, or the way that Google or whatever thinks of you and the kinds of things it thinks you're interested in. So on the one hand, I don't want to send traffic to this website, but also I don't want Google to think this is the kind of thing I want to see more of. And so I don't want to keep getting recommendations around these things. But what I'm looking at here, this is so I'm looking at this in Tor, so I feel pretty safe about that. So my IP address is not visible to this website, for example, which is good. And normally it is. Normally your IP address is visible to any website you visit. Okay, so but this website, naturalnews.com, is a source for lots and lots of misinformation. They blend it with real information, but even the way that they talk about real information and real stories is incredibly slanted. So it's not a reliable news source at all for anything. And you'll start to see as you look through it that it's got lots of trappings that are trying to identify it as part of the alt-right or far-right. And you can see like keywords like fighting for freedom and knowledge and awakening. All the little logos here are different alt-tech social media platforms like Parler and Gab. So there's a lot, down here. So there's a lot of signals here that this is unreliable, even before we look at the content. But this article I kind of zoomed in on because there's a very clear and specific claim made in the title, and then there's actually evidence offered throughout this article about this particular claim. If you wanted to study this one, you are welcome to. I think it is available. I mean, if you don't have a topic yet to study, I think this would be a valid one. But what you should do as you read this is not just sort of, I would focus on the facts that are claimed here and try to resist as much as you can just the slants, because taking on the slant makes your writing about it more politicized as well. But at the core, it seems to be a woman making this claim. There's a implication that Kamala Harris was involved. Or at least that people acting as vaccine police are doing so because Kamala Harris told them to. Kamala Harris. I also read the Kamala Khan comic books, and so I'm like Kamala and Kamala. I get the pronunciations backwards sometimes. But the vice president is alleged to be involved in this story as well. So take a look at this. There is a source, right? So there is this woman's tweet with this video. Then there's also a link to this other website, which is rumormillnews.com, which looks like a pretty similar website. People that make this kind of site, they don't make one site, they make dozens of websites with basically the same content repackaged so that they send people clicking back and forth between all these different websites so they get more ad revenue. So that's what this site probably is. It's another site in this network. So this is the kind of thing you can look for, but if you do, be really careful. You can get sucked into these. It can also be a rabbit hole of just information that is so convoluted and wrong that it's hard to know where to start in terms of debunking it. So, your mileage will vary. If you've already got a good topic, by all means, don't worry. Don't go down this rabbit hole. Okay, so let me show you though, before I move on, how I would, if you did want to talk about this article or anything else you find on naturalnews.com or one of these sites like this, there's a bunch. So I'm going to copy this URL, and then I'm going to take it over back into Chrome to show you what I did to share it with you all today, which is what I did to share it with you in Discord, which is I used this website called archive.today. There's also archive.org, right? So this is web.archive.org is a way that you can take a snapshot of a particular website. I don't like using this one for this purpose because the purpose of the Wayback Machine here is to kind of preserve digital culture, which to me is like I don't really want to preserve this natural news stuff. I just want to use it as an example. I don't want this to be part of kind of the history of the internet forever. So I'm going to do it right here. So I went to archive.today, and then I'm going to paste that URL right here and then hit save. Now this does take a few minutes. It took a few minutes when I did it earlier today, but it's going to run automatically from now on. And then eventually it's going to give me a new link that I can send you instead, which I've already done. In fact, I'm surprised it's not just kind of pulling up the same link that I created earlier. But it's going to work its way through that and then produce a link that is safe for me to send it to you. So by clicking on the link that I'm going to create here, you won't hit their ads, you won't do anything that gives them any traffic or revenue. So that's why that's a safer thing to do. Okay, so I'll let that run in the background and check on that in a minute. So today I wanted to talk about a couple of news stories that have come up. They came up actually really more or less last year, but they're still relevant issues and interesting to talk about, especially because this is a story with some context that I think is not included in this article, but that has been, I think, pretty widely been responded to in interesting ways. But the claim here in this article is that nearly half of accounts tweeting about coronavirus are likely bots. Now, this was published in May 20th of 2020, so things may have changed, but since then, one big thing, Twitter has gotten a lot more aggressive about banning accounts based on their activity. So, in particular, accounts that seem to be associated with QAnon, lots and lots of those got deleted or banished. Obviously, Donald Trump's Twitter account has been deleted. So these are things that have changed as far as the landscape of Twitter. But at least as far as last year, bots were a big part of the misinformation network around coronavirus, and I think they still are. The challenge, though, is figuring out how much and what influence are those bots having. And that's something that, even though we do have some research included here in this article, that is still the big question that's unanswered by the end of this article, and even just it's still an ongoing question, which is like how do we recognize a bot on Twitter, and how do we understand its influence on Twitter? And those are two surprisingly hard things to determine. A Twitter account that posts a lot of things over and over again, you might think is a bot, right? And I did find a couple when I was looking at this on this chemtrail stuff here. These accounts that just sort of essentially tweet nothing but hashtags, you might think that they're bots, but it's very easy for a real person to do that too, and it doesn't need a bot to do that. But that said, if you look at these accounts, whether it's a bot or not, let's see how many followers. Let's look at this one. Hopi Cobwebs, Laura Wanek, that's 600 followers. I mean, that's more than I expected, frankly, but that's still not a ton. I mean, that's not a ton of people that are going to be followed. They may also be bot type accounts too. There's a lot of trails. Those look pretty cool. All right, well, I'm not worried about it. I don't think it's chemtrails. The fake snow thing was pretty good because you had people, I remember posting videos of themselves trying to light snow on fire and then arguing that because it didn't catch on fire or melt, or no, because it didn't melt that it wasn't snow. But if you try that, you'll find that it does melt on the outside, but the inner part stays pretty intact, and then soot collects on the outside of that snow, and that's why it looks like it's burning, but it's not burning. It doesn't really burn. It's water. Anyway, Yeah, so archive.today is useful. Oh yeah, so and then the other story, this is a story about Twitter. And by the way, like if you have thoughts about these things or topics, you have a blog, and I'm not requiring a specific minimum number of blog posts, but I want you to be thinking about these things, and it would be cool to have a chance, if you have a chance, have some thoughts you want to share or research about any of these topics. A blog is a great space to explore those ideas and just kind of put your ideas out there. Facebook continues to be another problematic space as far as these things go. This was an article, again, this came out last year, but the idea that that Facebook should be more responsible for the harm that it causes, right? That's an ongoing conversation, and this is a story that reported on some internal conversations in Facebook where they recognized their power for evil, essentially, but decided not to do anything about it. And that's, I think, really problematic. So when we think about conversations about should Facebook be broken up, like should we make Facebook into multiple companies, or should we do other things to kind of oppose Facebook's control in our life, then that's the kind of thing we should think about, is that like what are their goals as a company, and what have they done as a company, and it's not always good. Okay, so just moving on a little bit, I've got some links here you're welcome to explore. The sponsored content is an interesting thing. So I wanted to talk about what I actually mean by sponsored content, because it's not just ads, but specifically ads that pretend to be content, right? So those are the things that are a little bit more sneaky sometimes, and so I want to show a few examples of those on live websites if I can, just to see how that looks. I'm still in the queue here. That's crazy. Okay, so one thing that I find really pretty easy to tell is like if you take a look at these two websites, these are two screenshots of the same website, fredericksburg.com. And on the left here, I don't know if you can see it that well, but I'll zoom in on that. On the left here, you can see that it's all ads. There's the only content you can see on this view is fredericksburg.com, the logo there. The top here, this is a Kubota ad and Dickinson equipment ad. Then there's this Barley Woods ad, and then here's this Xfinity ad. All of those are completely covering up any content at all on the homepage for fredericksburg.com. Versus if you try it with a ad blocker like uBlock Origin, like I recommended yesterday, you actually get to see the content. So now you often will also see a pop-up saying, "Hey, you're running an ad using an ad blocker. Please turn it off." The ad blocker doesn't completely solve your problem of accessing the website. And also, like, I understand the problem. Like, I understand that the newspaper needs income, and ads are a way to get income. But when they completely block their content, I just feel like it's not worth the effort. So that's the big challenge to figure out. Let's see. Let's take a look at it right now, actually. Let's take a look at fredericksburg.com. Yeah, they've actually updated their website, and so it's an entirely different look and everything. But this is great. So I'm using uBlock Origin right now, and you can see that I've got, no ads really. Not seeing anything or even any sponsored content. You do worry about things that are like this, where it's like 4 anti-aging skincare ingredients you should try. That sounds a little bit spammy, but maybe not that bad. Maybe a real article. Scrolling down, I am seeing a few random things that are kind of a few ads that have snuck in there, but not too bad, really. All right, so let's try it. Let's try turning it off. Ooh, okay. Yikes. Okay, so quite a different experience now that I've turned this off. So there's an ad for the Freelance Star, which is good. That's there. There was a big ad that showed up in the background, but it's gone now, so that's okay. There's a banner ad that's not too obtrusive, but that's all right. There's this ad, which is obviously an ad because it's Sports Illustrated. This thing over here, right here, this is the kind of thing that I think of as sponsored content, because whereas this one, LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, I know that's an ad. This here, right here, older Americans are getting Social Security boost from 2021 benefit. Just the typography and the layout of this is meant to look like an article. So it's not an article, and you can tell because it has the little ad choices thing popping up here on the right, but it actually is an ad. But that's what I would think of as a sponsored content, because it's pretending to be content. Nike ad, obviously, right? Otherwise, let's see, not seeing a ton of other ads or sponsored content looking through this. So let's see if I can find, sometimes you'll see a big section of sponsored content. So let me scroll down a little bit more. Yeah, not too bad. I think there's a lot of pretty good content here. I mean, and am glad that this newspaper exists and provides local coverage of local stories. I think it's our really our only local news source. So this is good. All right, so that's that one. Now let's take a look at the activity and see if it makes sense. So let me go back to my slides. I'm mainly using these slides like this, by the way, so that I can so it's easier for me to find the timestamps when I look back at this later. So the spotting sponsored content activity from the web literacy textbook. Let's take a look at it here. And one thing you can do with these, by the way, is like these are activities that I'm linking you to kind of within a chapter, but if you're not sure what something is or how it's being talked about, you can always you go back, right? So like go back to the previous page and see if it explains something that you need to know. So this is number 9. If you're not sure what sponsored content is, hey, take a look here. You can identify sponsored content this way. The other thing that you should know is that this is part of, the context here is that this is part of the going upstream step. So basically everything in this book is all about steps after step 1. So if you do step 1, which is check for previous research, and you find previous research, you're done, and you really don't need to proceed with anything else described in this book because you've already figured it out by looking at it on Snopes or whatever. But here, this is when we're going upstream. We're trying to figure out, where did this come from? What is the source for this claim? And one type of source that exists is sponsored content. And if you go upstream to find the source and you find that it is sponsored content, that gives you a lot more information about the reliability of the claim and a particular person or institution's motivations for making that claim. Still working. Okay. So identifying sponsored content means just that, like seeing if some content is sponsored. And what you see here, this is an example, a screenshot of an example. And these things are often disclosed as sponsored, but disclosed in kind of sneaky ways. So that's what we're kind of training ourselves to look for. All right, we're looking for sources like this, the highlighted bit here, or things that say sponsored, right? I mean, that's a pretty dead giveaway, but it's in pretty small font, so you got to look for these things. So let's try it out with the activity. So the activity is you've got these 8 websites, and I think I gave you a slightly smaller list just to make this more manageable. And the idea is, first of all, think of it through your impressions, like off the top of your head, based on your idea of the reputation of these different websites, how much of these websites are going to be sponsored content. And if you want to do the article, if you want to do it precisely the way the activity is described, you can look at not just CNN.com, but this specific article on CNN.com. And similarly, like this specific article on Breitbart.com, which I don't know if that's, I guess we can check to see if these are going to work. Okay, so I'm not going to go all the way through it, like ranking and then counting, but I wanted to just do a quick count on some of these. Actually, maybe I'll look at your Discord and see your notes in Discord and see what you all have come up with as far as some of your rankings. Let's see, let me find the right channel. Okay, so looking at people's impressions, Breitbart, CNN, BuzzFeed, people are mentioning BuzzFeed a lot. All right, so I'm seeing a lot of people okay, so I'm not sure if everyone's doing this right, because the idea was like you're supposed to do a pre and post, like do your first impression and then reply to yourself with what you actually found. But at least for most people's initial beliefs, they tend to believe that BuzzFeed is going to have a lot. So let's take a look at BuzzFeed, right? So again, not just like BuzzFeed itself, but this particular thing on it, right? So I will start counting when I see something. So actually I should make sure to turn off my ad blocker. Okay, because ad blockers might block a lot of sponsored content. Okay, so, okay, there's an ad. But it's not sponsored content, it's just an ad. Let's see. Once again, an ad. It's very clearly an ad. There's another ad. Oh, I like that shirt. That's crazy. Okay, still more ads. Still more ads. Yeah, I haven't looked at this in a while, so I don't actually know off the top of my head what the correct answer is. I'm actually looking at it here. Ads. Okay, so I didn't see any sponsored content at all in the article itself. Sometimes you will. Sometimes you'll see like a paragraph that seems out of place, but it's actually an ad. I didn't see any of that as I skimmed through it. So this is news. These are all links to newsfeed sources. I'm just kind of skimming it to see so I can see what the URLs are. Now they might be low quality content, but they are content by Buzzfeed. All right, let's see what we got down here. Again, more Buzzfeed content. More Buzzfeed content. This might be an infinite scroll situation, so I might need to stop counting. Yeah, it is. Okay. Well, I mean, my count is still 0, so I'm not seeing any sponsored content on here. Right. I mean, the ads are ads, and you can count the ads, and that might be an interesting thing. But these are not the kind of thing that we're looking for here, because these aren't really. I mean, these are very clearly set apart and look different. In fact, I think they've changed their website layout since I last did this exercise, because I don't recognize. I do remember there used to be some sponsored content on here, but I don't see any. So I think the answer is, I mean, I don't know how the other sites work, but so far, at least my number for this BuzzFeed article is 0. Maybe it looks different on your computer, or maybe something else will look different. But that's what I'm seeing. Now, if you counted differently or you saw something else, then we can compare notes. But that's what I see. Let's take a look at CNN. So a lot of people also kind of expected CNN to be high up on their list. I'm just kind of skimming, or kind of in the middle.
Now, CNN has learned new information about that ongoing investigation into those allegations.
I'm not clicking on the main CNN.com page, but looking at this particular article just because it's the one on the exercise, the activity, and it's meant to be, apples to apples. Okay, so right away I see something kind of interesting. I don't know if you can see this very well, but my uBlock Origin plugin tells me how much it has blocked, and it has blocked 44 things so far, which is a lot. But let's see what happens if we turn it off and see how this site changes in our view. All right, so
for their older parents
oh boy, okay,
every day.
yikes, lots going on here. So
to survive,
I don't want to.
sacrificing their time.
I guess that's actually an ad. All right, so this is an article, and there's an ad, more from CNN. So this is more CNN content. That's not sponsored content. Oh, here's some. So paid content. So you can tell it's sponsored content because it says paid content. But if you look at the layout, the typography, you got a big image, you got a headline, and then you got a byline. But it's all ads. So here's 1, 2, 3 things that are disguised as content. This one, Taste to Believe It, that's probably just an ad. I wouldn't count that. So what am I up to? I'm up to 3. So, and then here, paid content. This smart feed thing is a source for this kind of thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So far, yeah, up to 6. At least 6. This is real content, real content, real content, real content. Sponsored. So that's 7, 8. 9, 10, 11, and I think this might be I'm noticing a pattern, so this might be an infinite scroll too. Let me just see yeah, this is infinite scroll, so it's going to keep going. So what you'll see is like it looks like 2 big sponsored, well, actually no, the pattern is 2 big sponsored, 3 small sponsored, 2 big real, 3 small real, 2, so it's like there's the recurring blocks of 5 sponsored articles like this. Right, so these are all sponsored, you can tell because they literally say that. But as you scroll this quickly, you might not notice that. If you're just kind of drawn to the image, which research shows we are, like our eyes are drawn to the images and we react to images, we may not notice that this is sponsored content, and we may be misled into thinking that something that we read on one of these sites that we click on here is CNN content, and it's not. It's not editorially approved by CNN or anything, it's just an ad. Okay, so you could essentially keep counting forever, it seems. I mean, maybe there's a limit at some point, but because it's the infinite scroll thing, if I keep scrolling, it keeps loading new content. Or actually, it did stop, didn't it? Okay, yeah, it did finally stop. So maybe there's a limit to it, but it's quite high. Like I would put it probably 60 or 70, just guessing here. All right, so CNN is going to be very high, and I will say that most of the time when I've done this activity, and it does change throughout the years, most of the time CNN is the winner as far as having the most sponsored content on their website. Right now, so I guess one thing worth noting here that the fact that a website has sponsored content in it is not an assessment of their journalistic credibility, right? I mean, CNN is more than just a website, but they've organized their website to try to make revenue from it. That's their prerogative. Similarly, I think even though BuzzFeed scored very highly, it's interesting because a lot of people have a negative impression of BuzzFeed. I think many people still associate BuzzFeed with those like annoying quizzes and stuff. But BuzzFeed actually has a really good investigative journalistic component to it, and I think they've won Pulitzers. So they've done very well, and they do have a really strong journalism department at BuzzFeed, or they have. I think they might have had some shakeup and lost some people or something recently. But in general, BuzzFeed News, not BuzzFeed, but BuzzFeed News is actually a pretty good news source, right? So at least in my opinion. But they are a website, and of course they try to make money as they do. Wow, Brendan Fraser. Brendan Fraser does look pretty different. Okay, anyway, so let's see what else we can try out here. Just maybe one more. So there's also, I don't want to go to Breitbart. That site's depressing. So let's try Huffington Post. Okay, so Huffington Post is also going to probably, my guess is it's going to have a bit, and it'll be kind of in the middle, but let's try turning off my ad blocker and seeing what happens here. Okay, so this content, trending content, does look clickbaity, but I think it is real HuffPost content. So not sponsored content. Here's some sponsored content. No. Okay, just embedded stuff. Content related to the article. Yeah, so this is sponsored again, but I think popular and community, these seem like actual news. Oh, I think these are ads. Yeah, it took me a second even to realize it. So so it says you may like, but then if you look at it here, it's got this little thing at the top right, which I can't tell what that is, but it spins. But here it does definitely say ad here to acknowledge that these are ads. But again, like with CNN, you might not notice that at first. In fact, I didn't. Like I was first like, okay, is this a running related story? Like I follow track and field. I'm like, okay, who's that? But it's not. It's an ad. I mean, it may have content related to running, but it's an ad based on that. And then here again, you see it like, 2 real stories it looks like, and then 3 ads, 2 ads, 3 real stories. So pretty similar pattern to what you saw on CNN, but not doing the infinite replicating scroll thing. All right, well, that's what we're doing here when we look for sponsored content, right? So if you find some content that actually works, then that's good. Yeah, that John says, sorry, but this John Calhoun portrait looks really creepy. Like something about his eyes don't look right. Anyway, so that's sponsored content. So if you find something that is producing a claim that has is dubious for some reason, and it turns out to be sponsored, that's one way you can essentially call into question its reliability. One way, I mean, I showed you the Natural News website, which, let's see, still working my way up the queue. Like that website, Natural News, also they sell health products, and so that's part of their goal is to convince you that you don't need the coronavirus vaccine, you need our magical formula that will cure you naturally. Like that's literally the kind of thing they do. So another reason to avoid that website. Okay, so that's spotting sponsored content. Let's talk about going upstream with images. Now, this is all right. So I wanted to, maybe I'll make a channel for this too. I don't think I did already, but I'll just make a new channel for this. And I will encourage you to try out these specific images that you'll find here. But since these have already been, widely covered because they're in the textbook, I'm going to add a few more in that channel throughout the afternoon, just to give you some more things. But let's talk about how to actually do this, right? So this is the question: is this a real photo of National Geographic photographers running away from a bear? Right, so there's some things we can do to figure this out. Like we can look at the photo, but in this era of like highly skilled Photoshop editors, we can't just look at a photo because a good editor is going to be able to hide their tracks really well. So, we don't even have to get into that, it turns out, because there's a lot of other ways we can figure out what's going on about this image. And I hope you are aware of and familiar with reverse image search. It is a very powerful and useful tool that we didn't always have, but we do have now. So you can go to images.google.com, you click on the image icon, and then you paste the URL for that image. I don't know if you can see that, but what I did over here is I right-clicked and then I went copy image address. So that gives me the URL to just that image, which I can view here in its own tab just to show you that I have that. And then in Google image search by image, and you'll see search results that show you, websites that use this image. And if you look down here, you will see that, there are some articles that are related to what it thinks this image is about. So what happens here is Google Images, it uses a little bit of AI to figure out the contents of the image and then guesses at a possible caption for the image and then searches for that caption and then gives you some likely results related to that caption. So that's what you see in the first group here. And these are things about National Geographic photographers and bears. So we can click that and see if that's at all, related. Whoa. Oh, that's a cool picture. But that's not, this is not the same image. You see that bear like lurking in the water? That's crazy. But that's, anyway, this is what you'll see is that, in fact, this image has been covered so much in this textbook and by similar textbooks and by, people are, because people are allowed to fork this textbook and make their own versions of it and post their own versions of it on their own websites. That's allowed by the terms of use. So you'll see lots of copies basically of this article showing up. I just saw Chosen Clown on Twitch just noted that BuzzFeed owns Huffington Post, which is interesting. Yeah, and I think, if you do look at other pages on BuzzFeed besides the one I looked at, I'm sure you will find plenty of sponsored content. I mean, it's a way to make money on the web now. But it is interesting. I guess I had forgotten that, or I didn't know that. So you can see that this is lots of people basically with this same explanation. But if we look at like a different way of trying to understand this image, right? Instead of like, is this fake or not? Could we figure out where this image came from? So if we see this being used over and over again in explanations of photo manipulation, and if we look through this, eventually we'll find the story behind it. But let me show you something else that can be really useful in a Google search result, especially for images. So right now this is just a normal Google search result, and if I click here where it says settings, you can do some interesting things to help find tools. If you look on tools, then you can do some things to help you narrow down the results in ways that would be a bit more helpful. So you can look at, you can sort these by time, and you can also apply a custom time range to narrow down a particular time frame where you think this might have been made. So let's search from like 0, and then we'll put a kind of upper limit. So let's say up to, 2015. I think if I do it that way, it'll let me, let's see, it might insist that I put in, so before December 31st, 2015, has this been used? So here's a lot fewer results, and you'll notice that these are not results based on this textbook, and these are also not all in English, but that's something. So let's take a look at this example in this context. 22 images of photographers crossing all limits to take the perfect shot. Okay, great. Yeah, a lot of these are, I wonder if this is where Mike got these from. This looks like a set of other photos that I know he's talked about before. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so this one actually has a link to an image source. Let's take a look if this has something. Oh, it's an old-fashioned Facebook link, so that one's not going to work. But that gives us a sense that it at least existed as far as 2015. Let's see if we can go even earlier. Let's say 2012. It's worth noting, by the way, that the way that these search results work is that they trust a website to tell you what date it was produced on, and so it is certainly possible for me to make a website today and put a date on it of 2008, and it would probably still show up here as having been produced in 2008. But that's not necessarily the. But it's just to say that you can't rely absolutely on what the date is, but you can get a sense of it certainly, and you can just see here that there's a lot fewer results that give us a few more narrow things to look for as we try to figure out where this image actually came from. All right, let's see how I'm moving up in this queue, but a lot of people using this site for right now. Okay, this is one. Now, this is one that I would like for you to try to figure out the source of. I will tell you that most people get this wrong. So, in fact, I don't actually know the answer to this. So, the question is, can you name the photographer in the Swan? And if it's fake, can you show a debunking of it? So, it's much harder than this first one. You will find lots of instances of this photo on websites like this and lots of people talking about this photo. I will say you can also find photos of someone who uses a camera embedded in a swan, but it looks very different than this person here. And I don't know, that's all I can say about it. It does not look at all like this person. And the fake swan that has a camera in it does not look at all like this particular fake swan with a camera in it. So anyway, context is also important. This is definitely a real image, but what is it an image of? This is the kind of thing that can circulate with images as far as like spreading a fake claim. Okay, so try these out. Post your answers in the Discord channel that I just created called Trace Viral Photos if you figure it out. And I'll post a few more pictures there for you to try to figure out as well, just to kind of see what you can come up with. It's a good thing to try, and if nothing else, really the main thing is, like, a lot of your claims really don't have images at their source, but I wanted to make sure you saw that search tools thing, which you can do with any claim or any search result. So if we go to just google.com, and I do like using DuckDuckGo, but we'll use Google for this. Let me try. Actually, these are some things I've been searching for recently. Let's search for, does sunscreen cause cancer? Because I was looking for this. Someone had this question as one of the proposed topics. So we can actually look at this search results in a similar kind of time frame. We can go to tools and then click on a custom time frame and say, anytime between now and, let's see how far back this goes. Let's try 2010. Okay, so this, sunscreen's causing skin cancer, as this is from 2010. This is an article from the NIH, so probably has some data behind it. I don't know, there's a lot behind this basically. And the reason this would be kind of a hard topic to do this kind of debunking for is that there's a lot of complex medical data that you would have to access and then interpret, and interpreting it does take some skill. But this is what you can see. This is how you can zoom in on a particular claim and narrow it down to its first origination. You can't totally rely on the date that a website says something was posted on, but it's better than nothing. It at least gives you a frame of reference and a starting point. Okay, so this actually has a pretty good summary of the controversy right here. But it is dated 2008, so that's a 13-year-old summary. Okay, so let me think. I think that's all the slides I have, and I've actually gone for almost an hour, so I probably should wrap it up soon. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to cover from here. No, I think that's it. So this is, and like I said here in the instructions, I was going to create threads in general. I think I'm just going to make channels under reading discussions in Discord because that helps them stay separated. So I'm going to add a description for this channel here. All right, so by now you should already have your topic. If you don't, that's your first priority, is to get your topic nailed down. Submit the Google form or send me a DM in Discord, and I'll help you find one and narrow it down based on your choices and your preferences. But that's absolutely the first step or the next step. The thing then that you should be doing also today is start actually working on the research. So start using these methods to go upstream, find the source of these claims that you're researching. And I think you will find something, or you may get as close as you can and use these search tools to rewind time in the search results to get as early as possible to find the origination of these claims. And yes, Chosen Clown, I will be online today. So if you see me online in office hours, you're always welcome to drop in. So I will be online throughout the afternoon, probably on and off until 4 o'clock at least. But if I have to step away, I'll disconnect. So that'll be how you know if I'm available or not. Okay, so I think, the other thing, let me just show you the template once again in case you wanted to see that. The template is here in the assignment instructions, and so it's under step 2, which is when you've started doing your research, you can kind of use your document to collect research. Just remember you need to make a copy. So go to File and then make a copy, and then you'll have a copy that you can edit. This is a copy. This is my copy that you cannot edit. This is a template. And as you can see, you can actually make comments on it, as Levette has discovered, but you don't need to, right? The idea that is that when you create your document, set it up the same way so that other people can comment, and then when you're done with it, you share it in Discord, and then your peers can see it and add comments to help you revise it and make it even stronger. Okay, so I'm still working my way up. It did not take this long when I did this before. It really took 5 minutes when I did it before, but now I've been waiting 45 minutes here for this one. So I don't know. I guess that's okay because I've already done it, so it's sort of redundant anyway. Okay, well, with that, I think I'm going to wrap up the stream. I'll just switch to the outro music here, but I'll be online on Discord shortly, so I'll see you there if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you figure these things out and put things together nicely. I'll be back online, of course, tomorrow with the notes and instructions for Wednesday of this week. Your goal is to try to get a draft completed by tomorrow night of these articles. So we're going to need to move quickly on these, but I know you can do it. Many of you are off to a great start. Some of you, I'm sure you can catch up, but we'll get these things done and get the drafts finished by Wednesday night if at all possible. Okay, so that's all for now. I will switch to the outro and wish you all a good afternoon. See you later.